I'm Justin Williams of AfroUAE, and we have Michael Irons behind the camera. Today we're bringing you a profile of Oluwatoyin Tella. She's an artist and she's my sister-in-law, and I thought she'd be a really wonderful person to profile for reasons that I hope become apparent and obvious as we move through the interview. Hi, Oluwatoyin.
Hi, Justin.
How are you?
I'm well.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Talk to me about when you were born and your childhood. And how was it? What did you think about where were you born and how was your childhood?
Wow. We're going to be here for days.
Hey, let's go. Bring it.
So, I'll give you the short version.
Not too short.
Very short. I was born in Nigeria, Ilora. It's a very small town, Yoruba land.
North, south, east, west Nigeria?
South.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. And in Oyo State.
Okay.
So, it was a good childhood, relatively good.
Mm-hmm.
Dad, mom, grandmother. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother and went to school there. But I don't really remember school. I remember school, but it wasn't like the main focus of life. Mm-hmm. It was more so about family and outdoors and fruit. Those are like the main, and my grandmother, major memories.
When you think about Nigeria, do you have any kind of colors that come to mind, smells, sensations? What do you feel when you think about Nigeria?
It's a certain level of distance there as far as like physically, but mentally, it's warm. It seems like a long time ago. When you say color, I see like sandy brown, and definitely my grandmother plays a huge role in those memories. Okay. Food.
How many siblings do you have? Sisters, brothers?
I have a lot of siblings.
Mm-hmm.
For my mother, though, there's 4 of us, 4 girls.
And where are you in that continuum?
I'm number 3.
3 or 4.
3 or 4.
And have you thought often about positioning in that space and how that affected you in terms of being the 3rd of 4 as opposed to being the 1st?
Yeah, I that's interesting because I am the 3rd, but I was the 1st born from my mother in Nigeria. So it's definitely like something to that for me. But no, I really don't think about my placement. I mean, when I do certain things, I look up what does your place in your sibling line mean. Like that's one of the things with Yoruba, we're big on that. Like the firstborn has a certain amount of responsibility, 2nd, 3rd. Being the 7th child means something. Being the 3rd, I'm not particularly sure what being the 3rd means. But from the things that I've seen, it's that the 3rd child, and you're probably asking a leading question, but the 3rd child is just like slips under the radar to some extent, is quiet but not in their ways. That's what I've come to find out.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Where'd your parents meet?
Scotland.
In Scotland?
Of all places.
What were they doing in Scotland?
My mother was in school, my dad was on business. Jamaican, Nigerian. My mother's Jamaican.
Okay.
From Barneside, Westmoreland. Country in the mountains. My father from the country in Nigeria. And they met in Scotland.
How far back can you trace your family? On either side?
Well, that's interesting because since I've had children, that's been like, I don't know how it is for other people, but with children, you want them to know their legacy, their heritage, how far they go and how deep things go.
Right.
So from my father's side, he's in Nigeria right now. He's 80. And so calling him and talking to him about these things and getting names and things from him. Where we're from, Ilora, all of our ancestries come from there, mostly. And my father has this thing, he knows, you talk about Africans in oral history. He knows like the Yoruba, we're from Nigeria, yes. But if you want to go back thousands and thousands of years, he tells us we're from the Middle East, which is quite interesting. Egypt and beyond. And I've seen literature that supports that. So as far as our ancestry, we're in the Tella family, the Tella lineage, which is like my father's great. I'm not sure how many greats, but it's not that far back. We're from a royal lineage, and we're in the book, The History of the Yoruba. So yes, we can trace it pretty far back. And with my father, it goes back.
What about mom's side?
Mom's side, same thing. My mother asked her the same thing in Westmoreland, Jamaica. The lineage, it just goes back to Barnaside. Like, it's the same people. They've been there. That's where they are. Of course, you have, the mishap of African history, the transatlantic slave trade. Right. So, of course, they were taken to the mountains in Jamaica. But I believe we have some Irish or something.
Mom's maiden name is?
McIntosh. So with McIntosh now, something really awesome with that is Peter Tosh is my mother's cousin. Right. From the mountains in Barnaside. Tosh, McIntosh. Right. He shortened it. He moved to, Trenchtown. Okay. And hence Bob Marley and all that. But yes, that's also part of our lineage. Okay. Which is wonderful, I mean.
Yeah. It's wonderful and a superb, beautiful mixture.
Something quite interesting that I never noticed was I have a picture of my grandmother and my grandfather, maternal grandfather, paternal grandmother. I didn't know my paternal grandfather. I wasn't born yet when he passed away. Mm-hmm. So a friend of mine, he looked at the pictures because I have them side by side, and he said, "Oh, they look alike," and I never really considered that. So when people meet me and my sisters, the four from my mother and my father, they say, "You all look alike." Like, we've had people stop us and were convinced we were the other person. I'm the tallest out of the four, and then it goes down from there.
That's as far as height.
I could lie, say 5'9". No, I'm like 5'8". Okay. And then my other sister, my younger sister, she's 5'7.5", maybe, a little shorter than me, and then 5'6", 5'4". They're probably gonna be mad about that. But my point is that we all look alike. Right. So regardless of our height difference, our hairstyle difference, me and my younger sister, we wear glasses. People still come up to us. When we were in college, I went to Howard University. My other sister went to Clark Atlanta. We have Virginia Union and Norfolk State. We all went to HBCUs. And random people would just come up to us on our campuses like, "Hey," and just start talking. Not taking into account the height difference, right, slight complexion difference, right, personality. Like, they were convinced. So when my friend said your paternal grandmother and your maternal grandfather look alike, to me it was like, with the transatlantic slave kidnappings, there's probably something to that, because we look like, well, according to people, like, we look alike.
Yeah, I can relate to that, going to my father's hometown in Ocho Rios, and feeling like I just looked like a lot of people there. That was like the first time I was there. Really? Yeah, so it was kind of like my existential moment with that, and I can really resonate with what you're saying. How old were you when you left Nigeria?
9.
And so you moved to the United States when you were 9?
To Hempstead, Long Island.
Gotcha. Now, can you talk about how important hair was in your upbringing?
Oh my God, yes. Hair was, we were there. Hair was like meals. It was that, like, regular. So we used to get our hair done every Sunday. As far as Nigeria,
Who would do it for you?
My father or my parents hired someone to do all our hair every Sunday.
Your dad did your hair?
No. He's done my hair twice in my life. Okay. And one was immortalized for picture day. It was awful. And I remember he did it in Nigeria, and it was not good. But it was interesting. But it was just like, yeah, that's not what you do. Right. It's just not what you do. Right. But hair, we used to get our hair done every Sunday, all 4 of us. Or somebody will come. It was a neighborhood person, some distant cousin or something. And did our hair, all 4 of us. It was just normal. It was normal and different. African styles, different ways and things. So it's very important.
So who did you learn how to do hair from primarily?
Like a lot of black babe children, African children, hair abroad, dolls. But the first experience, again, it goes back to my grandmother, my paternal grandmother in Nigeria. She had gray hair, and we just do her hair, and she'll just sit there and let us just do whatever to her hair. And
Right.
I'm sure if you can imagine children doing a grown woman's head, how it looked. But yeah, that's the first person who we did. And then once we moved from Nigeria, she did not want to come to America, because I remember she pointed to the sky and said, in Yoruba, she said, "Is that what y'all gonna be going on? Because I'm not going up there.
Right.
Like, that's not happening." She was pushing 90 when we left.
Right.
So here, dolls.
Some of my earliest emotional moments and connections with my own mother is when she was doing my hair, and as I have watched your sister, my wife, and all of you interact with your children, with each other, and the interplay with your hair, it's been, I've just really respected it and appreciated it, and I've learned a lot about you all through watching you all relate and connect through your hair.
Oh, that's interesting, I guess, from an outsider looking in into that dynamic. Yeah. And even when we came here, I don't want to fail to mention my older sister, Shala. She had to be responsible for doing our hair, because now it's like, who does hair here, Right. And then from there, your wife, the second born, Adiola, she actually, I would say, the most gifted among us as far as doing hair, the most innovative as well, and the tightest braider. But she would she worked at a braid shop, and she learned to do extensions by just watching. And then she came back and taught the rest of us. So that's how we learned.
Wow. It's really fascinating to me. And I just think there's a powerful connection there between us as a family and then us as a people, as an extension.
Hair is important.
Yeah. Did you always know that you wanted to be an artist?
No, not consciously.
What does that mean?
Not consciously. There's things that happen. Like, I was always interested in color, always interested, like, our room, we're always redecorating and changing things. And in art classes in elementary or middle school, whatever, always doing it. There was one particular girl, when I was first introduced to art was when I came to the States, elementary school. And she used to draw these rooms, but she had a top view. And she'll have to draw the bed and all these different things. And I looked at it, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Can you teach me how to do that? And she did. And that was so fun.
But in terms of your formal training, did you go right into art, or did you go in a circuitous path?
Well, I wouldn't say it's circuitous, but
you love the word.
In high school, I took art classes because it was interesting, I guess. You have to take extracurricular stuff. Not extracurricular, but what do you call those? Supplementary, whatever. Art history, humanities, all those other things. So basically... Electives, that's what it is. So I took art. And I liked it, so I just kept taking it.
Was that your first realization that you liked art?
It was when the young lady, when I first came to this country, I think 4th or 5th grade. So that was my first realization. Right? Like, it was fun. So I was probably 10 or 11 at this point when she showed me that, when I asked her to show me. So, and then when I was 13, 14 in high school, that's when I took a class, a formal class, which was awesome.
Can you talk about your formal academic training?
I'm an electrical engineer by training.
Electrical engineer?
Electrical engineer. I have my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering.
From where?
Howard University.
Okay, now.
Full scholarship, graduated with honors. But I did some internships at different companies, but I didn't go that route. Now, when you say circuitous, that's how you pronounce that? It wasn't, because I always had an easel in my room. And I always painted.
So why did you do electrical engineering out of high school?
Because I come from a West Indian African household. And as anyone knows, unless your father is Fela or Bob Marley, art is not generally something that is even discussed as an option for you to even use your parents' money to go study. Like, unless your family is like an artsy family, it's not a thing. So it never really occurred to me to use art. In my consciousness, it was not an option, but my subconscious had another path for me.
Okay.
But consciously, you know, I was reared or shoved or pushed towards the sciences because I was good at it. I liked math, so it wasn't like it was super. I didn't want to necessarily be in a classroom environment teaching math, or I just liked it for myself. Right. So I was, you know.
What kind of student were you?
Led towards that. I was a great student. I should have been valedictorian, but I was.
Bitter. Party of one. Still bitter?
No, not bitter, because I took AP classes and all them things. But I was number 3. Thank you very much.
My gosh.
I got a full ride, full academic scholarship, electrical engineering at Howard University, graduated honors in 4 years.
All right now.
However, that wasn't the path that, you know, my spirit wanted to go. And so, again, my subconscious had a whole nother path for me. And, hence the arts. But even while I was getting my degree, I always took art classes, ceramics. I always painted. People thought I was an art major, you know. Because
of who you hung out with?
Because of how I carried myself and all my... I mean, I hung out with people in engineering as well, but yeah.
Your flow.
My friends at that time were art people.
Your energy.
Philosophy, all those things.
Which people have influenced you in your work, would you say the most?
John Biggers. John Biggers is an artist. I like his style. It's very, very neat and precise. Yet it's dreamy. John Biggers, as far as Jacob Lawrence, as far as his theme-based work, The Great Migration, things like that, kind of being a historian of the time and telling our stories. Jacob Lawrence. And I would say musicians influenced me a lot too. Like all of them. Oh. All of them. Anybody from ever in the world. A lot of African, Lee Farquhar Toure, Fela, Somi. I think she's Ugandan, East African.
Bob Marley, maybe?
He did when I was in high school, yes. A little bit. He was definitely a great influence.
And I'm just not sure we said it, but you do have a fine arts degree from Howard as well.
Yes, and then I went back and got my master's in fine arts in painting from Howard.
Okay. When was that?
10 years after I graduated. You don't need to date me, say.
So what does it mean to you to be an artist with chocolatey skin and sensibility?
Well, that's interesting, because at Howard, that was one of the debates we had, or the professors encouraged. Are you a black artist or are you just an artist? And I'll say I'm an artist.
What does that mean?
What does that mean to be an artist? Yeah. A creator.
As opposed to a chocolatey artist, what's the difference?
I don't know what the difference is, but I'm an artist.
So you just don't want to...
No, it's not that I want to or not. I just never put black artists in front of it, you know. It's when they say Basquiat, he just sold, you know, one of his pieces. It beat Andy Warhol recently, I think this past week, $111 million. Yeah, is it million? Maybe it's billion. I don't know. But it was 100. That would be great, right? 111 million.
Million, I can believe.
Sold. So he's the #1 selling artist.
Like all time?
Yes.
Where's he from?
Passed IT. He's Haitian. Of course, New York, but he's Haitian. Okay, black artist. And so my point is, when they say Basquiat, they just say Basquiat.
It's a Basquiat
over time,
piece.
It's like Beethoven.
It's not a black Basquiat.
Yeah.
Or chocolate.
Over time, Beethoven he's black.
Right.
But we don't hear black pianists. We hear Beethoven, right?
Right.
So Oluwatoyin Tella is an artist. woman artist, this artist, that artist, I'm an artist. Is to say it's a given that art is something other than black or other than female. It's just art. So what does that mean? You're saying it's white artist is the given, and I'm just, on the outside of that art,
So is it important or essential to you to transcend all of that stuff, the gender, the race, the class? Is it important to you?
Unfortunately, it is. It is just to make a point. It's not like my life work. Unfortunately, it just happens to be that it should, yeah. Right. It just so happens that, yes, it's important.
If artists hold up mirrors to the world, okay, what does your body of work reveal about you?
About me? We hold up mirrors to the world?
Yes.
So what does it say about me?
Correct.
I think somebody else will have to answer that. What do you think it says about me?
Well, I think the audience is much more intrigued.
What it says about me?
Sure. What
or
do you
the
think?
World?
Well, answer it any way you'd like.
All right. Well, I think it says about me. Again, I still feel the best person to say that is somebody other than myself. Mm-hmm. But I'm simple and complex. Mm-hmm. I think I could see that. Very deliberate, yet focused and wild.
I hear mathematics in that answer.
Do you?
I do.
Where?
In the entire answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was one of the things I always find and always have found fascinating about you is that mix between, your STEM background and the autistic. I think that you are actually like a really fantastic example of what like career and technical education should really be about. It is both those worlds fused together in the most ideal way possible. And I just really do think that you are like an embodiment of that. And so I just really respect that a lot about you.
Thank you. It's interesting because I'm a homeschooler, and the way I approach it is something I'm coming out. You said STEM, and there's STEAM, but I have another acronym is ASHE. So ASHE is ASE, Art, Science, Energy. So the arts, the sciences, and then the metaphysical or the energetic. Okay. I think that's important because I do see that in my own life. I do see how I started taking art classes at Howard when I was in engineering for my undergrad because I noticed my communication skills, being that I was constantly doing science, I don't know, left, right, whichever part of the brain they say, it tore up my creative side. It tore up my communication skills, because it was, and I noticed with the professors, they were just off balance, off kilter, and so I was like, oh no. So I just was like, okay, I need to take an art class. So I took a ceramics class that was about 6 hours, long in one day, and that balanced it out because I saw that. So my approach to homeschooling, just educating children, is I say art, science, and energy because the metaphysical is important.
Why is homeschooling your kids so important to you?
Again, my subconscious had a whole nother idea of what my life would be like. But consciously, it wasn't even a thought. And like I said, in Nigeria, us going to school wasn't the main focus of our childhood. The focus of our childhood was nature, family, and having fun. That was the focus. Right. So once I became pregnant, it was like, yeah. And I didn't really like school.
But you were
Not that I didn't like learning.
But you were good at it.
Yeah, because it fit my learning style.
But you didn't like it. Why didn't you like it?
Because it was too, it wasn't wild. It was too restrictive and boxy. But
linear, maybe too.
Linear. But my linear side, the science side, the auditory learner was able to just breeze through.
But you had like an intense craving to feed the other side of you as well. And
then I took those art classes.
You have a you have an extra special needs child, and can you talk about the experience of that and how that has shaped you?
Well, how's it? It's definitely, it was an initiation process, and it still is. Hopefully, it's coming to a close. As far as like the initiation, that's how I see it, because it just opened up so many different worlds, and only parents that have children with special needs, whether it's psychological, physical, or mental, really, really understand like what it does to you. So you could use it for your own growth, for your family's growth, or could use it to, or not use it because it is a gift.
Were you in control over how you used it?
Yes, it's a choice you make step by step.
How long did that journey take for you?
As far as how I used it,
yeah, learning how to use it. In ways
it's still, I'm still learning how. That's what I'm saying. The initiation, it's still it's a moment by moment thing, because let's say a parent with a child, they're challenging you constantly. So you either stay rigid and you're that parent that's like, it's my way or the highway, and then you don't want to see your child for who they are and what their needs are, or you bend and then you kind of engage your child, and then you give them all the opportunity and all the things they need for their personal growth. So with a special needs child, it's that times a billion, because they can't, depending on the special needs. My son particularly, he can't really verbally in English express to me what his needs are. However, I like my intuitive skills have broadened. My heart chakra, my determination to live my life how I choose, regardless of what my family thinks, society thinks. It's definitely clearer, because it's like I've been through what I feel like the worst thing that could happen to a parent or even a child. Right? I've experienced that, so it's like, let's go, let's live,
right,
and live for him too, to have, so his quality of life is optimal. But one thing that's never really changed, and one thing that I feel like has kept me focused and wild, is that I know he's gonna be well. And I think that's hard for other people to hear when they see what they see. But I believe in the unseen. And I feel like there's a hand in it, because just the way everything happened, it's too long for this interview, but the way everything happened is out of this world. And the answer, the solution has to be, again, out of this world.
How old is he?
He's 16.
Okay. How old's your daughter?
My daughter is 11.
Okay. And this is a really great transition to the next question. One of the pieces that we're going to feature in pictures and video that go along with this interview, you've entitled "Inner Me." Mm-hmm. I find it to be like immense. It's the word that comes to mind when I look at it, and then knowing you the way I know you. Mm-hmm. That's the word that comes to mind. Immense. It's an immense piece. Can you talk a little bit about where you were as the piece poured out?
Have I told you this before?
Maybe you have. Maybe you have.
Because it's interesting when it's not a surprise when you said, "Hey, this particular piece." But yes, that was my most out of body painting experience. I'll change that. That was my most inner body experience. Mm-hmm. Trance-like state I painted. And in that, the energy, the brush, the oneness created that piece. And it was like 4:00 in the morning. I was working at it. And that's the thing with me that I'm overcoming as well, being trained in the school system, because it kind of hindered me a little bit. It helped in that it trained me the math and all this, but it hindered my art side a little bit.
When you say school system, are you talking about the formal training of being an artist? So that's through college?
No. As far as arts and sciences.
Okay.
Arts, sciences. As far as engineering and things like that.
Okay.
Being left or right brain, whichever one it is. I think it's seconds left. So, so I was like looking at it linearly and logically. How am I doing? And then a friend of mine, artist, he said, just, you should look at this piece again. And it was overtime. I'm not sure what time it was. And I couldn't sleep. So I just sat and I painted it. And then when I came to, I say when I came to because I just remember being so in the moment, in the now. I was like, wow, I just painted myself. I didn't realize it. I was like, oh my goodness. And then I was just like, but that experience to have it now would be like so intoxicating. Because it actually was, but I think I was a little, drunk.
Got you.
Yeah.
Drunk with?
It was drunk with unseen energy. Like it was intense. It was very an intense moment. Once I realized what just happened at 4 a.m, right. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go under the covers now. That was a little too much for me, right. But it was great.
So you would say that experience was not typical of your general process?
I would have it. I definitely would have it where, energy comes opening up and I feel different sensations. But with that particular piece, it was definitely a standout moment.
It's really powerful. Mm-hmm. You are really keen on the Washington D.C. metro area. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, D.C. boy, the people there. There's a slave port. I don't know if I want to call it a slave port, but a port where Africans were shackled and pulled in. Annapolis, Maryland. So you just have, and I believe that's where Kunta Kinte, that's Alex Haley, I believe that's where he linked it to, Annapolis, Maryland. So you have a straight path right to D.C. D.C. Is it Benjamin Banneker, and you have that whole history there of just Africans just being there for generations and generations. And the thing with Africans in D.C., Black folks in D.C., there's a constant influx of fresh Africans, right? You have the embassies and all these things and marches. So I found the people there culturally, they're very in tune with their Africanness. Might be from the hood or whatever, but they have styles where it's they wear kufis. They'll be the style. It's the straight hood dudes. You have what because it's some energy there. And I believe that DC is some type of portal, and some other people might too, because right now it's highly gentrified, just like Brooklyn, highly, highly gentrified. So when I was there in the 90s, it was a totally different scene. And there's been so many dynamic people that I know personally that come out of there. And I believe they would agree, the creative energy, the Rastas that had their Bingy house there. You have the 5%ers. You have all these Pan-Africanists and African priests and priestesses. The energy there is intense.
Well, Wall Street is an old-time ground for where our ancestors were bought and sold as well. And there are ancestral burial grounds in downtown Manhattan and throughout New York City. So, there's a similar history there. Why do you see D.C. as, for you, why are you so much more connected to D.C. as opposed to New York City?
I never really liked New York City. The energy I don't vibe with. But with DC, I feel like a lot of it has to do with my coming of age, going to Howard, and exploring my art side, and the freedom and the openness and the, again, Africanness, the embassies, the different type of Africans, the different types of Black people there, and the art scene, the art scene mixed with the Pan-African scene, mixed with the, of course, Rasta Pan-African, all that just jumbled together.
Gotcha. And then for those who might not know, Howard University is in the DC metro area. Yes. So there's the connection there. If anyone watching is interested in seeing more of you and or your work, what is the best way for them to do so? To connect with you if they want to do so?
Well, I took down my website. I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but I did because I just felt like I kind of want to do a social experiment and see if word of mouth will I want to do it the old way, right? Word of mouth, and I want to get a professional web developer, but yeah. But
all right. So then,
yeah, my tag on Instagram, you can get me at Ancient Substance.
Ancient Substance.
At Ancient Substance.
Okay,
Yeah.
and spell your name, your first name for the audience.
Oluwatoyin Tella, Tella.
And you pronounce your first name.
Oluwatoyin.
Okay, Oluwatoyin.
Toyin.
Toyin, my sister, is there anything else that you want to share that we haven't touched
Yes,
on?
I would like to. It just keeps coming to mind to say this. Black Panther. He's a Howard University grad. He was there when I was there. That's it right there. I'm telling you, dynamic. You got Felicia Rashad, all these other people that came through that space. You know, Howard University, D.C. There's something to say about that, you know. It's not random.
Right. Right.
And there's other things. The bones from the African burial ground is back in New York now, I believe, but it was at Howard when I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was there. At Douglas Hall. Frederick Douglass Hall. Frederick Douglass, his home is still there.
Okay.
Yeah, D.C.
D.C.'s where's that for you?
Well, for now, it's interesting.
For now?
It's a great space. For now.
Okay.
Long Island is cool, too. Sojourner Truth walked the whole length of Long Island. You know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, she did. All the way to the Hamptons.
What? In the 1700s?
It's in the slave narrative. Yes, it is. She's from New York. She spoke Dutch.
Wow.
Yeah, she walked the whole of it. So long, Nikola Tesla, he had a site out in Long Island too. So Long Island is where it's at.
And there's a Tesla car plant here on Long Island
That's
today.
why.
I'm sure there's no relationship, but
hey, they used his name, Nikola Tesla. Yes, he had his experiment place out there on Long Island.
I want one of those cars, by the way.
I do too, just because.
Yeah, I saw one that I think we're all going to be driving Teslas in 10 years.
Why not?
Anyway, listen, it's been, I've really appreciated the time.
Thank you for having me.
You're somebody I've respected since I've met you, and it continues to deepen and widen. I just,
likewise.
I revere your soul and your spirit. I really do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and hope you enjoyed our interview.